Hello, Jennifer Cameron here for my HRT Task 4B video on the project that I did with my class. We had a speaker come in, I think March, and his whole conversation was about how to be a difference maker and what that meant, what they could do to be a difference maker, what it took to be a difference maker, and how that made us feel when we had difference makers in our own lives. It was a really impactful hour and a half for my third graders, and we talked about it quite a bit after, and then I just kind of felt like we needed to not forget about it. So what I did with them is I had them initially work in groups to come up with ideas of what a difference maker was. Then they talked in their groups about that. They had to share this. They picked a spokesperson, and that spokesperson shared what their ideas. I think they had come up with 5 different ways you could be a difference maker, or how somebody had been a difference maker to them, and they shared them with the group. And then we talked about those a little bit. And then the next day, they took that information and they had to come up with somebody that they felt had done something that made a difference and impacted their life, and how they did. So by talking about it initially with the group, they came up with some ideas of how they could be. And then the next day, they were like, okay, well, when has those things happened to me? And so after they discussed that, came up with some ideas, then they had to create a sheet. They had to pick 2 people. We focused on our classroom only, and they had to keep it private. 2 people that they wanted to write about that had made a difference in their life, whether it was that week or the school year. It didn't matter the time frame. And they had to write their name. They had to draw a picture of that person, and then they had to write on the back what they did that made a difference for them. And then the next day, after they wrote their 2 sheets, then the next day they had to share them with that person. So they walk up to that person and they had to read what they had wrote to that person, and then that person received that paper that they had wrote on to take with them. Then also I created a board outside our classroom that said, are you a difference maker, or has somebody made a difference maker for you? And I just put a bunch of different notes on this saying I was a difference maker because I did what. This person was a difference maker for me because they did what. And I just had pens out there and all these notes all over the board. And the board is now full. Kids just took to the board, wrote about a friend that had done something for them. And that was the ones that went first. When they had to actually give themselves credit, it took a little bit longer. But then I found some later they also filled in those that I was a difference maker because I did this for somebody else. So it was really a cool experience for me to watch happen, because at first they were like, well, people don't make a difference in my life. I'm like, I think you need to think about this. And like when they started thinking about how often that happens and how often maybe they do it that they don't recognize, it was pretty impactful for them to recognize. And too, when they saw that maybe their name show up out in the hallway, it also made a big difference. And then when they had to look that person in the eye and tell them how they impacted them, and look them in the eye and hear how they impacted them, it was really cool. So it was a great project. I would probably do it again, and I think the kids would say they took a lot out of it. Thanks.